In my last video, you saw 16 shows compete for a chance to make it to the main tournament. Today, the final 64 shows go head-to-head for the chance to make it to the final episode. As a reminder, this is meant to be a fun way for you to get to know me and my theatrical taste a bit more. If there is anything you disagree with, I highly encourage you to leave me a comment to let me know how you would have done things. I'm not here to judge any of the shows that you love, as I hope that you do not judge me for the shows that I love. Don't forget to check out part 1 of this 3-part series to see which shows did not make it to this round. The pairs facing off in this video were decided by taking the most recent productions I've seen and pairing them against productions that I've seen earlier in life. We're going to get started with part 2 right now. First up is Illinoise versus Spamalot. My family really loves Spamalot. It's such a great adaptation of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's so funny. I did not get a chance to see the revival. This was the original production on Broadway. I have to give it to Illinoise. Illinoise gave me all of the feels. I really enjoyed that theatrical experience. I'm so glad I got to see it. I was there on the final performance day, so that was very cool to be there. Hairspray versus Lempicka. Lempicka was a really weird theatrical experience for me. Basically, the day I went, Eden Espinosa was not able to go on, so it was her understudy's very first time going on for the main role, and things were kind of off with the production as a whole, but she did a phenomenal job. I don't think that the musical we got was the best way to tell Lempicka's story. So Hairspray, you are moving on through. It's a classic. It's Hairspray. Rent versus Six. I feel like most theater kids have a Rent phase at some point. It's just one of the most recognizable musicals ever. But I just really love Six the musical. I can't say enough good things about it. Six is moving on. I've made my decision. Legally Blonde versus Sweeney Todd. I watched that MTV recording of Legally Blonde every day for a year. I was obsessed with it as a kid. Everything was correct about Legally Blonde. The production design, the script, the music. It took what was great about the movie and it just completely ran with it for the musical. So I love Legally Blonde. Sweeney Todd. My favorite thing about the revival of Sweeney Todd was hearing the music live. I thought Josh Groban was miscast. I think he would make an excellent George Surratt in Sunday in the Park with George. This was just not his role. If anything, I kind of felt like he was doing a little bit of a Sunday in the Park with George performance in Sweeney Todd. It didn't work for me. Legally Blonde is moving on. Job versus Shrek the musical. Job is going to move on. I saw Shrek when I was a child, and I have to say, I was kind of bored. Mamma Mia versus Parade. Oh, this is really apples and oranges here. I saw a concert version of Parade starring Jeremy Jordan and Laura Benanti. I liked that version of the show better than this revival. Listen, the thing with Parade is it's such an important story, and I do love the music. This just was not my favorite production overall of the show. Mamma Mia, on the other hand, I saw it when I was a child and just loved it for how big and flashy it was. I saw it again as an adult and I was just like, oh yeah, this is fun, but I felt like it was outdated. To me, Parade as a show has more of a timeless quality to it just because of its subject matter. And at the end of the day, I am very grateful for Parade because it taught me about the tragic history of Leo Frank. Because of that, I'm going to move Parade forward and we'll keep going. Billy Elliot versus Jagged Little Pill. Jagged Little Pill was fine. It wasn't my favorite thing, so Billy Elliot is going to move on to the next round. Billy Elliot was such a fantastic production. It just went all out. Elton John's music was fantastic in the show. It makes me very curious to see what he's going to do with the Devil Wears Prada musical. Bye Bye Birdie versus the Cher Show. I think this was the 2009 revival of Bye Bye Birdie. It was the one that starred John Stamos. The Cher Show is going to move forward. I remember it more, and it was like that ensemble, that cast was giving me everything I needed from the Cher Show. It didn't teach me anything new about Cher, but I did just like hearing Stephanie J. Block sing those songs. I thought that was a lot of fun. Bye Bye Birdie, it was fine. It was a totally fine revival of Bye Bye Birdie. Cher Show is moving on. Okay, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime versus Wicked. I loved Curious Incident, but I have to give it to Wicked. It is the most recognizable show on Broadway. Mary Poppins versus Head Over Heels. I did not like Mary Poppins. I was so bored. I was a child when I saw it, but it did not do it for me. Head Over Heels is moving on. It was more fun. I enjoyed it much more. Next to Normal versus Carousel. Next to Normal is going to move on. I remember so vividly being in the orthodontist office, seeing a commercial for Next to Normal and hearing Just Another Day for the first time. It's such a fantastic piece of theater. Carousel, it's a classic. I did not like this production of it. Come From Away versus Memphis. Come From Away is going to move on to the next round. I really thought Come From Away could have been a New York staple. Memphis was very good, but Come From Away just really did it for me. The Play That Goes Wrong versus How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, starring Daniel Radcliffe. I really enjoyed the revival of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. It's a very smart musical. I love a good satire, so it is moving on. Phantom of the Opera versus The Band's Visit. Okay, I've never really been a Phantom of the Opera fan. I liked it, but I did not love it when I first saw it. The Band's Visit, I know I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I just don't really remember The Band's Visit so much. And because Phantom is such a staple in musical theater history, Phantom of the Opera is going to move on to the next round. Sister Act versus Mean Girls. Oh, I did not have a fun time at either of these shows. I really loved the score of Sister Act. The music is very catchy, but the audience that I was seeing it with, the energy was not there. I don't know what was going on. Maybe because it was a matinee, but I don't know. It was just a really odd experience. Mean Girls, I did not like. I'm sorry, Mean Girls fans. The musical of Mean Girls that we ended up with was not the best way to tell the story, in my opinion. I expected to go to Mean Girls and have a laugh out loud experience, but it just didn't do it for me. I think Mean Girls was rushed to the stage, so Sister Act is moving on forward. The Book of Mormon versus SpongeBob SquarePants the Musical. SpongeBob SquarePants is another show that I thought was eager to get into the hands of schools and community theaters. I really love this production. I thought it was very well done. Book of Mormon, I didn't find it to be as funny as it was advertised, so SpongeBob SquarePants is moving on. Okay, Porgy and Bess versus The Lion King. Porgy and Bess was the first time I ever saw Audra McDonald and Norm Lewis on stage, so for that, I am very appreciative of it. I don't remember too much about the story. I was very young when I saw this production, but there are certain parts that I remember very vividly. It's just the whole picture, the whole story is lost a little bit on me. The Lion King is going to move on. It was the first show I ever saw. It was the one that wowed me. I still have such a huge place in my heart for that musical. Newsies versus Groundhog Day. Okay, there were elements of Groundhog Day that I really enjoyed. I do have to admit, I did get a little bit bored of Groundhog Day when I saw it in the theater, although I do really respect the direction that the creative team was taking with the production. Newsies is just a very well-oiled machine of a musical, so Newsies is going to move on. Bring It On versus Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen is a show that, honestly, the story of it just makes me feel very uncomfortable. And I think more and more people have started to have that same feeling about it ever since the movie came out. I do know that a lot of people do love it. I hear you. I do think some of the songs are very well done. It's just not for me. Bring It On was such a surprise. I loved that musical. I thought the music was fantastic. I thought that the stunts were incredible. It really gave me a whole new respect for the athleticism of cheerleading. Bring It On is going to move on. Jersey Boys versus Falsettos. I was not a fan of this revival of Falsettos. I enjoyed Jersey Boys more, so that is going to move on. Kinky Boots versus Cabaret. Cabaret is going to move forward. I do love Kinky Boots. I think it is a very well done show. It's just that I love Cabaret. I think it is one of the most perfect musicals to ever be written. So Cabaret is moving on. Waitress versus Matilda. I remember not enjoying Matilda when I saw it in theaters, but I do love the music, and I did enjoy the Netflix movie version of it. I enjoyed the production of Waitress more than I enjoyed Matilda, so Waitress is going to move on. Once versus Hamilton. Oh, okay. So Hamilton is going to move on. It's such an important piece of musical theater history. Once, I really love Once. I learned how to play Falling Slowly on the piano. It's the only thing I know how to play. But Hamilton, what a show for our times. It was just incredible. So Hamilton is moving on. First Date versus The Color Purple. The Color Purple was the first show I ever gave a mid-show standing ovation. What a magical theater experience. The audience was so into it. First Date was a lot of fun. I loved the idea of this romantic comedy of a show being on stage. I liked some of the music in it. I just like The Color Purple more, so that is going to move on. Big Fish versus Moulin Rouge. You know what's funny is for both of these shows, I would rather just watch their movies. I'm going to move Big Fish to the next round. Moulin Rouge, there were some song changes. I know why they did it, but there were some songs that I loved in the movie version that did not make it into the Broadway production. And I know it's because they came out in two very different times, but what can I say? I like the movie more. So Big Fish is going to move on. Beautiful versus On Your Feet. This is funny. Okay, we have two bio musicals. Beautiful is going to move on. On Your Feet, it didn't really do it for me. There were some numbers that I really liked, but I did not buy into the chemistry of the two lead performers. And I feel like that was a very important part of the story. So Beautiful is going to move into the next round. If Then versus Something Rotten. I feel like I appreciate the story that If Then was trying to tell more now than I did when I first saw it. I just had more fun with Something Rotten. I thought it was a better production. Something Rotten is going to move on. Violet versus Dames at Sea. I really like the music of Violet, and I also enjoyed seeing Sutton Foster in that role. But I just really loved Dames at Sea. I liked the music. I liked the production. There was a moment in the show where Leslie Margarita's character crossed the stage holding a ladder, and it was one of the funniest moments I had ever seen in a Broadway show. So for that, Dames at Sea is moving on. On the Town versus And Juliet. And Juliet is moving on. On the Town was fine. I just preferred And Juliet. Pippin versus Spring Awakening. I really enjoyed the direction of both of these shows. But I have to say, Deaf West's production of Spring Awakening has a special place in my heart. I loved that revival so much. I did not see the original Spring Awakening, and I really liked Michael Arden's direction with this show. I liked his direction here more than I did in Parade. It helped me see the story in a brand new light, and I just really appreciate it for that. So Spring Awakening is moving on. Sideshow versus Fun Home. I was on a Sideshow kick for a while when I was in like high school. However, Fun Home is going to move on. Fun Home was the show that made me fall in love with seeing theater in the round. Sam Gold directed the heck out of that show. It was so good. Fun Home is moving on. Hedwig and the Angry Inch versus Chicago. Okay, so Hedwig and the Angry Inch, I had partial view seats, which ruined my experience. I have to say, there were things happening at the back of the stage that I did not see. So I had no idea what was going on during the show. So honestly, for that reason, I do have to move Chicago forward because I just enjoyed that experience more. That does it for part 2. Let me know in the comments which show you think will win. Remember to subscribe to my channel to be notified when I upload the final episode of this series to see which production makes it to the very end. Thank you for watching.